So for this week's college football rankings, I have decided to put the Alabama Crimson Tide at number 1. If we're being honest, the LSU-Bama game was kind of a fluke. 2 turnovers and a bad snap on a punt caused Alabama to lose. So that's why I have Alabama at number 1. Well, in all seriousness, Alabama just has not proven they can beat a good team yet. The Tide's best win is over 18th ranked Texas A&M, simply not as good as the other teams in the top 12. In this series, I ranked the top 12 college football teams as if I was part of the selection committee. Remember, my rankings are purely based off results and not my opinion on which team is better or worse. My ranking philosophy is that I want to see how well each team has proven they can beat good teams. It's that simple. So, let's get started. At number 12, I have undefeated Baylor. And Baylor has had just too many close games this year. Yes, they deserve credit for finding a way to win, but they have been close to losing maybe 4 times this season. Their best win is over 19th ranked Iowa State in the TeamRankings.com predictive rankings, and that win just isn't good enough to cancel out the close calls Baylor has had this season. Next up, at 11, I have Michigan. And yes, you can say that this Michigan team got blown out by Wisconsin, but they also blew out Notre Dame, which I think cancels out the Wisconsin loss in a way. The Wolverines also have a close win over Iowa to help keep them in the top 12. At number 10, we have Oregon. Oregon's best wins are over Washington on the road in a blowout of USC in LA. Oregon also had a close call with Washington State at home a few weeks ago. So all in all, Oregon needs to beat a better team than Washington in order to move up the rankings. And at number 9, we have Alabama. Alabama has just yet to prove that they can beat a team better than Texas A&M. I'm not going to punish Alabama too much for losing to LSU. LSU's a really good team. But the Tide simply don't have wins as good as the top 8 teams that are ahead of them. And we simply have to make the loss to LSU count. And at the 8th spot is Florida. And the reason I would have Florida ahead of Alabama is because Florida has a better win than Alabama. And that win is the Auburn win a few weeks ago. And there's no way of knowing if Alabama would have lost to Georgia like Florida did. So to me, it's a no-brainer to have Florida ahead of Alabama. Florida technically is more proven than Alabama. At number 7, we have Georgia. The Bulldogs are at 7 mainly because of the bad loss to South Carolina. Georgia did not show up that day, and they need to be punished. The Dogs do have good wins over Notre Dame and Florida to help make up for that loss. They get the nod over Florida simply because they beat Florida on the field, and I will honor that. At number 6, we have Penn State. Penn State and Georgia have similar good wins. Penn State has beaten 11th ranked Michigan and 15th ranked Iowa. Georgia has beat 12th ranked Florida and 14th ranked Notre Dame. The way we break the tie between Penn State and Georgia is that Penn State lost to a better team than Georgia did. It's that simple. At the 5 spot, we have Auburn. The Tigers controlled 18th ranked Texas A&M on the road, as well as beating a top 10 team in Oregon. While Auburn does have 2 losses, there are two top 12 teams, and one being LSU, which is arguably the best team in the country. At number 4, we have to put Minnesota. One of my main philosophies in selecting a playoff is that we need to make the difference between winning and losing count. So that means rewarding undefeated teams. While Minnesota probably isn't one of the best 4 teams in the country, they have yet to lose, and not to mention, they knocked off a top 5 team this Saturday, one of the best wins besides LSU this season. At number 3, we have Clemson. While Clemson does not have a win over a team ranked higher than 18th, the Tigers have yet to lose. Clemson is showing that they can do whatever they want with these lower level ACC teams, which helps their case. Clemson might not have the best resume, but the way I select teams 1 through 4 is different than the way I rank teams 5 through 12. As I said, we have to make winning and losing count, and Clemson has yet to lose, so that's why Clemson is in the top 4. At number 2, we have Ohio State. The Buckeyes dominated a top 10 team in Wisconsin and have done the same to every other team they have played so far. Ohio State has won every game by 24 points or more. It is clear they deserve a spot in the top 4. And at number 1, we have LSU. Obviously, they have a win over Alabama, and that alone is enough to get them to number 1. But LSU also has a win at Texas and home wins over Florida and Auburn. It's very simple. LSU is number 1. So, as a recap, in the Peach Bowl, we would have LSU in Minnesota, and in the Fiesta Bowl, we would have Ohio State and Clemson. Again, a rematch of that 2016 matchup in the same stadium, so that would be interesting. But obviously, things are going to change. I don't think Minnesota is going to beat both Iowa, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. I think they're going to take a loss. And once they take a loss, those first 3 games they had are going to hurt them a lot. Minnesota, they had a close game against South Dakota State, That was a 7-point win. They had a close game over Georgia Southern, which was a 3-point win, and a close game over Fresno State, which was a 3-point win. That's going to hurt them a lot once they take a loss. They still technically can take a loss to Iowa or Wisconsin and technically still make the Big Ten championship. And if they were somehow be able to knock out Ohio State, then obviously they would deserve a top 4 spot. But I just don't think Minnesota is going to stay there for very long. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried to make it a little shorter, a little bit more fun this week. It was actually very hard to rank the teams. I think what made it so hard was a Minnesota win over Penn State, because Minnesota hasn't beat anybody better than 53rd in the nation before they beat Penn State. And that makes it really hard to judge. But I decided that since Minnesota has beaten a good team in Penn State, they deserve to be in the top 4, and they haven't lost yet. I think I got it right this week. Let me know if I got it wrong. Please comment. I love doing these videos. Hope you enjoyed it. So long.